In Michael's wake, could weather tip Florida's midterm elections? As the November election date looms, thousands of Floridians find themselves homeless in the wake of a devastating hurricane. According to a CNN article on Tuesday, October 16th, 2,500 structures have been damaged in the Florida Panhandle coast. As of last Tuesday, 140,000 power customers in Florida were still without power. Will Panhandle residents have access to voter polling places on November 6th? According to Florida resident Michael Thomas, editor of the Millennium Report, much of Florida's Panhandle, the area hardest hit by Hurricane Michael, is, quote, Republican red country. The place is as red as any place on the planet, and they vote straight Republican every year, end quote. Governor Rick Scott has made provision for these dedicated voters, with ballots being overnighted to voters upon request to the supervisors of elections. Voters may also request assistance at any fire or police station. Perhaps the most significant race at stake is a gubernatorial contest between Democratic Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum, sometimes referred to as Obama 2.0, and Republican Congressman Ron DeSantis. Gillum is heavily funded by George Soros, Tom Steyer, and the Democratic machine. In August, Steyer and Soros announced a $650,000 boost into Gillum's campaign, together with their donors. At that time, liberal groups also coordinated a $3.5 million get-out-the-vote effort for Gillum prior to the primary. More recently, Tom Steyer contributed an additional $2 million, according to True Pundit. Quote, the move comes as another group funded by Steyer, Next Gen America, is reportedly spending more than $5 million in support of Gillum's campaign, end quote, stated the True Pundit article. What has made Gillum the darling of hard-left supporters? Quote, Gillum campaigned extensively on an exclusively leftist agenda, promising universal health care, a $15 an hour minimum wage, abolishing ICE, and repealing Florida's Stand Your Ground gun defense law. He also vowed to tackle global warming and enact stiff taxes on the wealthy to pour more money into the state's schools, end quote. Breitbart offers further enlightenment by stating, quote, Florida gubernatorial candidate Andrew Gillum graduated from an Oakland, California-based training school for progressive revolutionaries that has spawned a list of activists who have gone on to become the who's who of the far-left leadership world, with many taking senior positions at organizations financed by billionaire George Soros, end quote. Add to this the fact that Florida often tips the scales in national elections and could potentially be a strong influence in the 2020 presidential elections. Gillum wants to abolish ICE. Could this mean he might be tolerant of illegal immigrants voting? Those who study globalist schemes are aware that their plans stretch years and even decades and centuries into the future. Naturally, they would want to plant one of their devoted minions in a key position such as governor of Florida, the key state to win, in order to win most presidential elections. Along with the very significant gubernatorial contest, there is a Senate race between incumbent Democratic Senator Bill Nelson and GOP sitting governor Rick Scott. Many consider the Nelson-Scott race outcome to be a toss-up. Most of the Panhandle is in Florida's District 2, where the incumbent Congressman Neil Dunn will face a challenge from Bob Ratcliffe. While the outcome of this race may be less closely contested, the possibility of difficulty for some voters casting their votes could potentially mean a less predictable result. The odd development of Hurricane Michael alone was enough to set conspiracy theorists abuzz with speculation on how a tropical storm can so quickly develop into a deadly hurricane, and shots of radar screens showing unusual energy bursts in the sort of straight lines that are never seen in nature seemed to many to be evidence that Michael was engineered to become much worse than it otherwise might have been. If a madman had control of a weather weapon, would it be worth his while to use it to prevent a few thousand people from voting? According to a Politico article on Tuesday, October 16th, DCCC Chairman Ben Ray Lujan, Democrat, New Mexico, stated that 25,000 votes could determine who would control the House of Representatives following November's midterm elections, with some races being tipped by 600 votes or less. In light of such closely contested races, every vote is expected to be significant on November 6th. Considering what is at stake with regard to the elections, prayer is needed, not only for Panhandle residents to put their shattered lives back together, but for the ability of patriotic Americans to cast their all-important votes in this historic election. Thanks for watching. For Corsi Nation, I'm Abigail.